Excellent. Come on, you've got to stay for the skills. Everybody. Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you. Welcome to Engage, Empower, Excel, Strategies for Talent Attraction and Retention. For those who don't know me, my name is Dave Whitehouse. I'm the Chief Exec of Offshore Energy's UK, and in my role, I'm privileged to represent over 400 companies working in our expanding offshore energy sector. So thank you so much for attending the session as we look to the transition of our energy mix, not just oil and gas, but offshore wind, carbon storage and hydrogen. How we attract, how we retain talent, and how we offer opportunities is going to be critical to our future. Today, I am joined by a fantastic lineup of industry speakers and panelists who represent a diverse range of expertise and perspectives and bring a wealth of knowledge and enthusiasm on the strategies and solutions that we can all get after to continue to make this industry a great place to work. So over the coming hour, we're going to touch on topics that span from the role of education and training, attraction and retention methods, and solutions and importance of equality, diversity, and inclusion in our workplaces. I'm going to kick off. I've got a few words I would like to say. So a few of my own thoughts, but then we're going to be followed by a keynote speech from Christina Horsball, who's the Vice President of Sustainability and Climate Action at X Academy, and followed it by a discussion with our distinguished panel. We're joined by Allan, Chief Exec of Global E&C, Michael Ziegler, Vice President of People and Transition at Total Energy, and Sarah Cridland, Vice President and UK Manager for Technip FMC. I would encourage the audience to participate in today's discussion. I think we'll have a Slido up on the board, so if you've got some questions you'd like to ask, please ask them. And I think we'll also, if time allows, we'll open up the floor as well to some questions. So today, in Scotland, our industry supports 90,000 jobs. We support 220,000 jobs across the entire UK. These are highly skilled jobs, creating significant value in this economy. Last year, we generated over £30 billion worth of value. That's 1.5% of the total GDP of the UK. These are some of the most highly productive jobs we have in the UK. The skills, I must say, people are our number one asset. People say that, but we need to demonstrate that. We must treat them as such as we drive through the energy mix. The skills of our existing workforce are indeed the very skills that we need to unlock a successful energy transition. I do sometimes get a little bit frustrated when I'm told by various politicians that they won't leave the workforce behind. I appreciate the sentiment. But in all honesty, my fear is not that our sector and our people will be left behind, it's that politicians won't catch up with us. We are already in action in developing those new jobs, in creating those new opportunities. Workforce modelling predicts that if we deliver a successful energy transition, by the end of the decade, not only will we need the talent that we have in oil and gas, but in carbon storage, hydrogen and wind, and we will need numbers far in excess of what we already have. UK-wide, looking wider, the Institute of Mechanical Engineers highlighted that the UK will be short of not just 1 million engineers, but 1 million engineers and technicians for UK infrastructure alone. We need more people. As a broad energy sector, we must attract, retain, and develop the people to power this transition. And one thing is very, very true. Without people, without those skills, you cannot have consistent growth. You cannot tackle energy security. You cannot deliver net zero. You just cannot do it. There is no fair transition without people and skills. The pipeline of talent really matters. There's partnership work taking place across the country between our companies, between our schools, between our universities, with our technical colleges. And actually, I want to recognise some of the excellent work that goes on in this city between our two universities, RGU and Aberdeen, and with our technical, working in collaboration with our technical colleges and ESCOL, working together to accelerate the energy skills of the future. I also wanted to recognise some of the excellent reach-out work in schools that many of the companies represented here today undertake. We work with the Association of Black and Minority Ethnic Engineers to encourage children of all backgrounds to be inquisitive about engineering and the kind of jobs that we have. We need more of this collaborative approach, and we need more of this across the country. Next week, the Oil and Gas will publish some insights into public attitudes towards our sector. Our polling is look at the oil and gas sector's license to operate. And what that does say is that people are indeed more positive about renewable energy than they are about oil and gas. Only 50% of people out there believe that oil and gas can offer long-term job security, compared with 74% in renewables. Only 45% of people will be proud to work in oil and gas today, compared with 71% in renewables. We have to change that. I've been proud to work in the sector. We should be proud of the sector we work in, and more we need to recognise that our energy future is not oil and gas or renewables. It's oil and gas and renewables, and together we all need to land this message. Competition for talent is fierce. Why would talented people wish to work in our sector versus companies like TikTok or Google? Well, I'll tell you what, I think we need to tell our story more. We're becoming increasingly integrated, and the opportunities themselves are becoming increasingly integrated. In my mind, what we're trying to do is not create green jobs or oil and gas jobs. That language is gone. We're trying to create energy jobs and the energy jobs of the future. I've been so lucky with the opportunities the sector's given me. I joined as a young engineer, and actually some of my first merit, 5 years in, working in the Gulf of Mexico, middle of the Gulf of Mexico, pumping a first subsea frac job and a completion on a completion well. These are opportunities you do not get in other industries. Absolutely fabulous. We need to continue to have more of that. As a society, I think we do need to recognise that there's more, that we need to recognise that those who gain technical qualifications are absolutely on a par with those who gain academic qualifications. We need to see the roles of technical standards being held in just as high regard as the work we do in our universities. I absolutely applaud the work of those developing the young workforce and their No Wrong Path initiative. That is exactly the right approach. We need technical people. I'm also struck a little bit in my role at OEUK when we talk about jobs and we talk about growth. We also need to be very mindful of the communities that we represent. I was at a breakfast discussion a couple of weeks ago in Parliament, and there was a great opportunity talking about hydrogen hub down in the east of England. Great opportunity, lots of jobs, lots of economic growth, great for the community. But the members of the local council were there, and actually one of the things they said to me was, we like it, great, we like to hear all this. But actually, their fear was, we do not have the houses for the people. Actually, in the southeast of England, they don't have the water supply for the people. And so one of the things, as we talk about jobs and skills, we mustn't forget about the places and the communities that we work. So to retain people, we need to listen more. We need to understand what they want, just from our own workforce today, but the workforce of the future. We need to be inspiring. We need to make it diverse. We need to make it inclusive. Numbers are increasing, but today there is still less than 25% of women working in our sector and less than 5% working offshore. We need to change that. My eldest daughter, Meg, she graduated last year in mechanical engineering, and it's 2022, and you go to the graduation, and it's still 85% are men in doing that engineering degree. We've got to change this. What Ollie and the team at AFBE told me, only 9% of the engineers in the UK are from a black and minority ethnic background. And yet, actually, we have 30% of our engineering graduates are from those backgrounds. We need to help people get into these roles. There are so many people committed in this sector to making it change, to getting inclusion and diversity anchored in our workplace. The work of the Axis network that we have locally, the team at AFBE, many again of the companies we have here. But the question, I think, is still, how can we be yet more impactful? Both now and into the future, it's vital we create working environments that are supportive and attractive through all the generations, through all phases of our lives and careers, if we truly want to retain people. Things are changing, but I reflect on my own career, and it's pretty fair to say I didn't do my fair share of looking after the kids as they were growing up. I hugely regret that. And please don't make the mistake I made. We need to put in place clear pathways that allow people to move between sectors. I think Gillian mentioned it today. The work that APITO are doing in this area with the skills passport is absolutely huge. It's important. We need to support that. But the role of our dynamic sector should, of course, be about continued development. We all recognise that the jobs of the future will be transformed from the jobs of today. The role of digitalisation, artificial intelligence will transform tasks that we perform. We need to embrace and develop all that. So in summary, the opportunities for the UK energy sector to transform how we power our society are indeed inspiring. But I do believe we need to change how we attract, develop, and retain talent if we want to be those global leaders. Our conversation has to be happen, though, on how do we make this happen. We must engage, empower, and excel. Thank you. And if I could introduce Christina to the lectern. Thank you.
It's been done for me. Thank you so much, Dave. It is an absolute honour to be here in front of you all this morning at such an important event, not just for our industry, but for our city. It's been hugely encouraging to hear from both the Minister and Dave this morning about diversity and a just transition, and I think that leads me really nicely into what I'm going to talk to you about today. So why am I here? Engage, empower, excel, strategies for talent attraction and retention. What a tagline. Thank you, Dave, and the team for basically what sums up X Academy. So I am here to quite shamelessly plug X Academy, our approach to talent attraction and our passion for retaining skilled and incredibly experienced talent within the energy sector within the UK. I'm also here to motivate, inspire, and generate some thought on how we can achieve that together. Because X Academy really sits at the heart of an ecosystem, and our success is your success. Our partners truly are pioneering change, driving and fulfilling the industry mandate for transition skills and jobs, and our mission, it really is to enable the success of both individuals and organisations. We truly believe that together, and we've already started to talk about collaboration, we have an opportunity to be the key enablers of the green job revolution, or as Dave says, the energy job revolution, to accelerate net zero and bring value to our cities, our communities, to the UK. Action prioritised and delivering change. Now, it's fair to say we can all see in this room a huge energy job opportunity right in front of us, and we can see the need to urgently accelerate net zero. Yet, rightly so, there's this increasingly undertone of unease. Unease about how positions and people's futures might look, and yet in parallel we're talking at the same time of all of these new jobs, additional jobs that are going to be needed. So today's session really is all about the people. People at the heart of transition, people to unlock inertia, drive change, deliver meaningful impact, how we retain, how we attract, and how we motivate people. Because there is a real risk. Without the people to deliver on the projects, we will fail to unlock the investment potential, and it will have a brutal knock on impact. It will brutal knock on the impact to our supply chain, our economy, and our communities, not to mention our net zero commitments and our impact on climate. And I guess everybody in here also recognises that we are increasingly competing on a global stage for talent with the policy changes that we are seeing driving renewable developments in Europe and the US, acting as strong magnets for the talent that is moving into energy. So I want you to take a moment and just imagine it's 2030 and all of us, everyone in this room, has played a part in developing the capabilities of thousands of people working across the energy sector to deliver that fantastic pipeline of low carbon projects, delivered value to our societies that we all live in, and visible, accessible pathways for thousands more skilled jobs across energy. Imagine being a part of that. That's why I'm personally here. It's why X Academy exists. So that's enough from me for a second. And maybe let's hear a little bit more from the team. And in true Blue Peter style, for those of you who remember Blue Peter, here's one we made earlier.
X Academy is an exciting and ambitious initiative designed to facilitate meaningful impact in the energy sector. We'll take candidates and put them through a 2-year program. During those 2 years, they'll work on real-life energy projects. They'll be supported by mentors from within Exodus and within industry, so that they can keep learning their skills, they can be seeking long-term career advice, they can be exploring ways to take their ambitions and be able to fulfill them in their careers. We want to create an environment where people from different backgrounds can really excel, so that we can harness that and really make a difference.
I'm Melina Zaglak. I'm a part of X Academy. We have a very young crowd of people who are really passionate about energy transition. And I found this is by far the best workplace that I've ever worked. The support that I get as a neurodiverse person, as a woman, as an immigrant has been amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
5 words to describe X Academy: exciting, challenging, ambitious, collaborative, and impactful. We really want a diverse representation of thoughts, of ideas, of voices, of opinions, because we know that we need that creativity, we need those different perspectives in order to create the very best projects that we possibly can.
The road to net zero isn't going to be instantaneous. You need to firstly envisage an end goal.
To be actively involved, to obtain the skills, the knowledge, the experience,
to empower everybody everywhere, to stand up and listen and bring about the change we need.
You just watch and see the solutions that will come out of this. Yeah.
X Academy was launched nearly 2 years ago to create Green Jobs Now, focused on tangible, enabling actions that will unlock the workforce of tomorrow. But we need you. We need you to scale our impact, and I am unapologetically recruiting you all into the X Academy movement. X Academy was born out of the idea that one of the biggest threats to delivering the energy transition is not having the diversely skilled workforce in place, ready to deliver when we need it. Because without the people, none of this works. All of the good intentions around net zero targets, the commitments, the North Sea transition deal, tumbles like dominoes. However, I am an optimist, and my first thought is, what could that future workforce look like? What do we all collectively want it to look like? And probably more importantly, what should it look like? Achieving net zero and a just transition will continue to impact millions of people and workers across the UK in every sector, every region, every city. The people creating, delivering and operating the projects needed both now and in the future. Like many of you in this room today, personally living and working in Aberdeen has really put a spotlight on both the challenge and the opportunity. Now, Exodus recognised a need to create something that could positively impact the pace at which projects can be realised by focusing initially on the people, the who. The people needed to create, install and operate. This challenge isn't unique to Aberdeen. It's common in every city and every town and every community. X Academy exists because of the shortage of people. But why? Why do we have a shortage of people? Many of you will recognise some of the challenges that are on this slide. It's a snapshot, it's not everything. But let's take visibility, for example. How do the roles available right now connect to the roles of the future? How are we demonstrating that fluidity of a career in energy, the career pathways? If you can see it, you can believe it's possible for you. And I do think most of you in here will also recognise the importance of representation, of diversity and inclusion, and seeing a diverse workforce. Who and where are the visible role models, the mentors, the leaders, the examples we should be shining a light on to improve that appeal, to build that confidence, and to highlight that longevity of a career in energy? The society and the workforce are hugely transforming. We were talking about this in the Future Talent Hub only yesterday. and it's moving at pace. People want to feel part of a movement, to see a vision and to belong. They're looking for opportunities to thrive, not just in career goals or with big compensation packages, but also in their well-being and in their work-life balance. We now know we need to move faster, but we know that we also need to do that with a happy, healthy, committed workforce, and for that, we need leadership. X-Academy, plug in again. We're coming here to pioneer the change across industry, researching and understanding the challenges and the opportunities. We're fast-tracking talent with real-life experience, accelerating behavioural, professional and mindset skills. Generating that appeal, working on reputation, changing societal norms, and delivering right now meaningful action. We are providing purpose. Untapped talent exists, we know this. It's finding and removing the barriers to accelerating their entry into industry and keeping them there. And what does it start with? Culture, values, and being confident to be different. That's what both attracts and retains people. So, this is our movement, and this is why we exist. We're engaging across industry, government, and the community. And this is what we and our partners are already delivering. And we're not even 2 years in yet, actually. So we're here to articulate the ask for some big bucks. Because to really create change, to really deliver scale, we need more partners. We need more collaborators, more of you and your organisations that are here today working with us in collaboration to create the change that we not only want to see, but we need to see. So let's make it thousands of people retained and attracted to energy because we all decided to act together. We are enabling the energy transition jobs transformation, and we are asking you to join us. In our successful pilot, we've won 3 industry awards, and we've achieved a 50-50 gender split across our cohort. Pretty unheard of in energy. It's a personal favourite success story as a female leader who's worked for a number of years in the energy industry. And it's a small indicator of change. I've been really encouraged to hear stories lately of energy organisations stipulating their line in the sand that if suppliers do not have that gender split by 2030, they will take their business elsewhere. So accelerating progress on diversity, inclusivity and equity is not only the right thing to do, it will directly impact the bottom line. So from today's talk, you will know X-Academy is about upskilling the workforce, attracting talent, but it's also about enabling leadership teams to drive cultural change through their organisations. It's a movement, and we're now being invited to export this internationally, with work underway in Japan, Australia, the Middle East, and the US. But first, it's important to recognise the opportunity that we have here at home. We are already working with a number of partners across the breadth of energy, and our accelerators, some of which are in the room, who were cringing at the video a moment ago, come with diverse skill sets and gain on-the-job experience at relevant organisations just like yours on low-carbon, climate-focused projects, all at the heart of the initiative. So what does success look like? Our first cohort are already securing jobs. Jobs in organisations such as SSE, Fred Olsen, Genesis. We've attracted people transitioning from oil and gas, graduates, early and late career professionals, from lawyers to product designers to engineers. They have worked on projects from hydrogen to wind to CCS to decarbonisation to environmental consenting. And our leadership team, it's made up of a geologist, a geographer, an engineer, and an environmental scientist, all from oil and gas backgrounds, all passionate about the energy industry and the energy transition. It truly is a collaborative model. This is collaboration. It takes a community, and working across and within the skills landscape, which we know can be busy, we're looking at connecting the dots to tap into the untapped talent, tackle the capacity shortages, and map the pathways to roles that will exist in the future, non-competing, connecting. Our successful public-private funded pilot secured support from Wind Consortium, BP and EMBW, and the Scottish Government through the North East Economic Recovery and Skills Fund, along with self-funding from Exodus. A different approach, pioneering. This needed to be a not-for-profit, delivered for industry by industry. We've recently commissioned our own meta-study to complement and build on the important work that's already underway so that we can have that live view of the workforce opportunity at any given time, to start to remove that uncertainty and inject confidence and visualise those pathways, enabling jobs now to deliver the workforce of the future. This work is going to be used to inform and influence policy decisions and sector support. And whilst there is a myriad of strategies, and we heard from the Minister earlier, there is still no singular UK energy-specific workforce strategy. Rather than wait for one, we're finding answers to the questions that we have. We're focused on action. So to close, we see an opportunity, but also the huge risk of not acting fast enough. We're going to hear that across the conference, across numerous different talks. But for people, it truly is needed at pace. So while the skills and workforce landscape can be complex, X Academy is here, and we're bringing the right ingredients together to maximise that opportunity ahead. We're acting to integrate government policy and industry with the society needs, to cut through some of that clutter. We had hundreds more applications in our latest round of recruitment than we could offer places to. Dozens more applications than we had places funded. Scaling through more commercial and public scale partnerships is what is going to allow us to supercharge our impact in Aberdeen and the UK. So let's imagine 2030, together, everybody in this room has played a part in developing the capabilities of thousands of people working across the energy sector, delivering that fantastic pipeline of low-carbon projects, creating value to the societies that we all live in, and have clear pathways for thousands more skilled jobs in the energy transition. We can't keep doing the same things. New models like X Academy are needed, where we put the purpose before profit for the good of our country's energy needs, for the economy and people. We truly believe that with industry and government involvement, X Academy will achieve this for the UK. So my final question today is, who's in? And you can drop your contact details through the QR code and we will be in touch. Thank you, everybody. I'm Christina Horspool, VP of Sustainability and Climate Action, and it's been a pleasure talking to you all.
And great, thank you very much, Christina. Inspiring words, thank you. If I could just bring our panel on. So we've got Michael. So Michael, Sarah and Terry to join us on stage. So thank you very much indeed. So please, welcome your panel.
All right, sorry, I wasn't sure if we were...
Oh. So let's get kicked off. So I think some really interesting reflections, and I do wonder if we could maybe just kick off with a couple of minutes just to introduce yourselves and maybe give your own perspective on where we sit on talent attraction and retention in the sector. Michael, I wonder if you could kick us off.
Okay, thank you for this invitation. Michael Ziegler, I'm the Director of People and Transition within TotalEnergies. As you may hear, I'm a German. I recently joined the UK end of last year. I've been working since 2016 for TotalEnergies in different positions. My background is a lawyer. I woke up in the eastern part of Germany in a country which doesn't exist anymore. I was 16, yeah, if the wall fell, and I decided to study law. It was, from my point, or from the point of today, it was really a good decision, but yeah, it was a pure coincidence that I came to HR. It was just a promotion from my previous boss in the steel industry. I worked for several industries in Germany, for steel companies, in the automotive supply sector, in the aerospace sector. And I'm happy to join the TotalEnergies family. So in terms of talent management, and for me I think it's important to have these headline always in mind. If you speak about talent management, I think it's one of the key factors within an HR department to deal with all these measures to attract, to retain employees. And if you look on on our staff, and I guess it's for more or less maybe the same for your companies, we have to manage 4 generations in the company, yeah? And we don't forget, and this is always my message, we cannot forget the baby boomers, yeah, which and the Generation X, yeah, it's my generation, yeah, okay. We speak a lot about the millennials and the Generation Z, yeah, with different approaches, yeah, but I think it's really a challenge, and maybe I can share some insights in terms of talent management between Germany and the UK. I have some ideas which at least could be worth to discuss, maybe new approaches, and this is what maybe we could discuss today, how we can influence the oil and gas sector more than just, I don't know, negotiate some salary increases, yeah, during some tariff negotiation on the base salary, yeah. It's, I think it's, there are so many more approaches, yeah, to attract talents, yeah, to join the sector, the oil and gas sector, and as David mentioned, I think it's clear for all of us that for the next 50 years, yeah, we are working in this sector. Yeah, the mix will be, the energy mix will be another one in 2050. That's clear, yeah, but I think the industry is going forward.
Thank you so much, Michael. And Terry, yourself, actually, maybe just briefly introduce yourself, and then your reflections on talent in the sector.
Thanks, Dave. So I'm Ted Allan. Excuse me. I'm from Global E&C CEO there. We're a largely UK-focused EPC contractor, about 1,000 people, primarily offshore, but we do a fair bit of work onshore as well across various energy markets. From conversations during the breakfast this morning, and obviously just listening to the presentations for this session, there's clearly a need to look at talent differently at this point. I guess my key reflections, and I was taking some notes there, just as Christina was talking, are really in 3 areas. So firstly, around retention. Yeah. I think there's a significant challenge ahead of us at just retaining the base talent and experience that we have in the industry to deliver the activity that we have in the plan. And it sounds like a really easy thing to do, but actually when you stack some of the things that we've heard today around competition in international markets, parallel sectors domestically pooling our talent, it just becomes much harder to do. So first and foremost, retention is key. Not surprisingly, around attraction. I think we've heard a lot from Christina around what that looks like, and so when you're trying to attract new talent, I guess the first thing that we need to understand is, what does our workforce look like today? And then what will our workforce look like in the future? And picking up on some of Michael's points there around the generational impact, it just looks very different. Mm-hmm. We know that some of the generations coming into the workforce today have different expectations, and they expect to work in more creative ways and be more collaborative. They expect to have a far deeper sense of connectivity to the companies that they work for's purpose. And that starts to drive a different conversation around how we consider that as part of our talent attraction strategies. And so a good example of that, I think, is if you look at around half of the workforce now, I think, are made up of millennials, and that brings a different complexion. But especially when you think around the fact that it's the first generation that are digitally native. Yeah. So what it means is ultimately they've been lived their whole lives on technology and digitalization, and then they come into the oil and gas industry or the energy industry and how we're evolving. And some companies in our space have some strides to make in order to meet the expectations of their future workforce and how they'll work. But on the positive side, we're probably one of the most digitally and technology advanced industries on the planet, and so there's a really good story to tell there. And I guess, speaking of planet, that's probably my third point, is just on climate change. And what's becoming really, really clear is that the future leaders and future workforce just expect their employer and their industry to be making a meaningful impact on the health of the planet. And it's becoming much clearer. I mean, if you look at the future leaders coming to the workforce today, they just have a really acute sense of the planet's health, much more so than we did. And if I think around just in the last sort of 5 or 10 years, the documentaries like Our Planet with David Attenborough, or Before the Flood, I think it was called, with Leonardo DiCaprio, they just paint a really, really clear picture on climate change that we didn't see as kids. And so we need to think about that in terms of how we attract future talent. And if we want to attract future talent, then we as organisations, as an industry, need to be making a meaningful shift in how we're contributing to decarbonise that industry, but then more broadly, the opportunity is there to impact on a larger scale. So loads in that, loads of opportunity, but if you between the lines, there's a lot of positives that we can take around how we attract talent.
That's excellent. Thank you, Terry. And I think your point you make about the expectation that we are real leaders when it comes to climate change, I think that really resonates. Sarah, you run a huge organisation. What are your if you had to introduce yourself, and then what are your reflections on where we sit?
No, thank you, and thanks for being part of this panel. So I'm Sarah Cridland. I'm our VP Subsea UK Caspian and Med, and I'm also the UK country manager for Technip FMC. We at Technip FMC, we're a British leading technology provider both to traditional energy and to new energies. And really, as a supplier of fully integrated products, projects and services, attraction and retention of personnel is absolutely key. When I look as part of our leadership team, one of our key success factors that we monitor every week is where we are in that. It's absolutely underpinning how we succeed as a business. I've got, really building on some really good points by my fellow panellists on attraction of talent. And maybe talk a bit about that in reflection with the just transition as well, which we're kind of key to talk about. And that is because we talk a lot about skills. I think we have an awful lot of good skills in our organisations and in our industry, and they're very transferable, and these are some very good technical skills, and we have a lot of that, and I think we've got to recognise it. Where I think we need to focus, and this is something that we can all help and work with as well, is what's needed for the future is, and as we talk about technology changes, etc., is maybe I want to talk less about the technical and more about the meta skills that are needed to go into what is a very changing environment. Dave, I listened to something you'd said yesterday, and this is not about people going into and I'm going to take this opportunity to say how wrong Hamza Youssef was to say that people who he doesn't want to support oil and gas because it will take people away from renewables. We are all talking about people who are going to work in the whole of the energy industry. They're going to work between that, and in order to do that, they need adaptability. They need curiosity to find new ways of doing things, and because we can't keep doing what we've always done, they're needing the sort of softer, these meta skills, and I don't think we talk enough about that, and that's where we can help. And where I'm going with that with a just transition is we've done some work with outreach in schools, and I can really see the difference where we need to spend more time on that with the children in some of the different areas of our sort of both in Aberdeen and in our wider country, Scotland and the UK. And that can help really build us a workforce, because we have a workforce out there. We are just only targeting a very narrow part of it at the moment. And even then, you know, we get a little bit hooked up in what we've always done, I think, when we're talking about attracting talent. We took a decision a number of years ago that we were going to recruit 50% female graduates. So really pleased to hear that X Academy is doing the same. And we've been successful over the last 3 years, where we've taken in 50% of female engineering graduates. And as you said, Dave, they're not all mechanical engineers, because you don't get 50% female in mechanical engineering. But what we can do is we can look at things differently. Why do we judge it on a child who made a decision at 18 or 17 to go and choose a subject? So we were only recruiting mechanical engineering from a certain couple of universities. Well, I mean, that meant we would have missed out on a fantastic young lady who works with us, who had gone to do physics and then halfway through a degree decided that that wasn't the right thing for her. Or people who have gone and studied other subjects but are still interested. You know, engineering does not all revolve around, and I'm speaking as a mechanical engineer, does not start and finish with mechanical engineering, you know. And I think it's really important that we look at people's skills. Are they collaborative? Are they inquisitive? Are they curious? How are they working? How are they, you know, driving themselves forward? And that's what will help us to really take this industry and to attract and retain the right talent.
That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. So thank you so much for that. So a couple of other questions that I've got. One is, so when it comes to retaining people, I'll tell you what, sometimes the most important people is your organisation and your line manager. So Christina, what advice would you give to a line manager to help develop and retain talent?
Thanks, Dave. As a previous line manager in an energy consultancy with high turnover, because talent is always being drawn to the operators, I've lived and breathed this, where I've needed to have strong line managers, keeping talent in place. And I have to say, one of the key things is value. People want to feel valued. They want to see where they're contributing, and they need opportunities. So I'd say there's 3 key things at the top of the list. But you can have a bit of a disconnect. So you could have the leadership goals, that's what you're going to drive through the organisation. But if you don't have that middle management, the line managers orchestrating that, making that happen, connecting with their lines, you're going to start to lose talent. So absolutely, they need to feel valued, that they're contributing, and that they have and can see opportunities through the business.
Fantastic. It's definitely advice I shall take myself as well. So excellent. Terry, I don't know if you would like to come in on that same question. What advice would you give to a line manager?
I think as soon as you move into a line management role, ultimately all that it means is that you're now leading a team. And really simplistically is, and we talk a lot about it within our team, is people first, always. And so it's really easy when you get into difficult situations, because you're measuring performance, when you're trying to get a pulse check on how your team's feeling, how the customers are feeling within customer-facing roles, how they're impacting across the business with how they're behaving or impacting or driving their team. And all of that plays out in different ways at different times. And we know that we're all different, and so we have different styles and things. So the most simplistic piece of advice I would give one of my line managers within Global E&C is just people first, always, and focus on feeling the pulse of your team and the impact that they're having in your organisation. And as soon as you don't feel like you either understand how your team's performing, the impact on the broader organisation, how they're connecting, how they're impacting the customer, how they're engaging with the supply chain, how they're taking talent through or not, what their recruitment looks like, how they're engaging upwards and managing expectations, all this stuff that's just people. As soon as they can't feel that, then they're probably not spending enough time with their team. And so if you can't feel it, circle back, spend more time with your team and focus on people. All the systems and processes and stuff are needed and good, but they're just setting the parameters in which we engage with our people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important, and as technology evolves, it is still about the way we interact with each other. It absolutely is. Michael, one of the questions that I've been given is, as a sector, as an energy sector, do we have an attraction problem? And if so, what do we need to do about it?
it's a good question. My first reaction is, yes, we have an attraction problem, and maybe I can share a concrete example. Each year we run an interim program for internships, roughly 20, 25 internships for 12 weeks, 3 months. And recently we had the wrap-up session with our 23 internship program, and the main message was that maybe in my own words, some of these interns said to me, okay, it's not sexy to work for oil and gas. Sorry to say, in my simple words, but I think it's part of the story. So, and our job is, to convince everybody in the company, outside the company, to say no, it's much more to work for oil and gas, with all these opportunities, with all the commitments from the leadership perspective. I think an important topic is the tone from the top, to pass the message through the teams down to the line management, etc. And in that case, and another big influence is, from my perspective, the cultural management in terms of providing all the necessary information to the interns, to the graduates, to the applicants, etc. To convince them, no, it's completely the right decision to join operators, contractors within the oil and gas sector, and you will go, or we can build your career path, and this is what we are doing on a day-to-day basis. As I said, for me, I think it's heart of the HR organization is talent management, and underlined with all these centers of excellence, like recruitment, like shared service operation and topics, etc. But this talent management, it's much more important than, I don't know, 10 years in the past.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. Actually, Sarah, I don't know if you would have any views on do we have an attraction problem, and what could we do better?
Do you know, when I was thinking about this, and when we looked, I mean, initially, so for example, for our graduate program, we had a huge number of applicants. Great. And what I find when I talk to people is that I think if we talk about our geographical area, it's easier to attract people. It's then more difficult because we're all attracting people from the same area. But because people in this area, they know the industry, they're very well informed, they know what's happening. So actually, when I reflected on it a bit longer, I think we do, from a sort of a UK-wide, and I think this is where, as an industry, you know, and I'm going to embarrass Fraser with this. You talked about wanting to be involved, and he is a young person. He questioned whether he was a young person yesterday. I think anybody 3 years out of uni is still a young person. So I'm like, yes, he is a young person. And it was about making change from inside. And that is, for me, is absolutely 100% the message. You know, it was interesting because we were having a discussion yesterday about the fact that we all want the same thing. Somebody who's standing there protesting outside an office to just stop oil is actually, we're wanting the same thing. We want decarbonisation of this industry. The difference is we do it from being inside the industry, managing a transition, looking at technologies that can do it, you know, helping to find a sustainable future for, you know, for the UK. I'm going to have my UK hat on today. But that's what's important. And I think that that's where we need to really, as an industry, talk about that. Because, you know, that is what, you know, as an energy industry, we can attract people, we can give fantastic careers. I mean, I've had an amazing career in this organisation, you know, in my organisation. I started actually as a graduate and just never left. So I celebrated 30 years this year. And I didn't expect to do that. Well, one thing, I thought actually I would be retired. In my naivety, I thought that, you know, I might have retired by this point, but no. So, you know, I've had great opportunity to travel. I've lived and worked in, you know, numbers of countries from, you know, Angola, Brazil, France, the US. I've had great opportunities to do that. I've met great people, and I've learned so much, and I just keep learning, hence the reason I'm not retired. But, you know, you keep learning, and I think that we need to do a better job of explaining to people that they can do that. And then I also think we need to watch that permafrost in our organisation with attraction, because, you know, younger people are not going to hang around waiting for 20 years to develop their career. I wouldn't have wanted to do that, and I didn't wait for that. And I think sometimes we kind of have this, we've got to think about the different, you know, your generational point's really true as we look at what different generations need within the organisation. So a bit of a mixed answer. I think we may have one, but I think we can fix it.
No, sounds good. And my own experience, I think, to echo all of that, I think one is, I mean, we're so lucky, the industry we work in, if you want to change the world, this is where you, if you want to talk about it, go and work somewhere else. If you actually want to do it, this is where you come to work. And the other piece for me is actually, I don't think we have an attraction problem, my own view. We're just not communicating enough. Every time you sit with kids and you talk about the stuff we do, every time that's always a good engagement. Right, another question.
Dave, am I on? Is it possible to because I've got a point around diversity and inclusion and attraction.
Christine, I'll bring you in. Let me just, we've just got a few more minutes. I'll bring you in on that one. So quick one around diversity and inclusion. So it's been on the agenda. I've been in the industry for 30 years. It's been on the agenda for 30 years. There's some good stuff happening. But when we talk about the stats, I tell you what, there's still more to do. How can we be more impactful in this area? I don't know if you want to come in on that then, Christina.
I think it's really linked to attraction, actually. So have we got an attraction problem? I think yes, in terms of diversity and inclusion. So are we trying to look at who are we trying to attract and where are they coming from? Because actually then maybe we do have an attraction problem. How do we tap into that untapped talent that we've not got into before? We can continue to try and attract the same, more of the same, more of the same, more of the same, and maybe we don't have an attraction problem there. But actually, we want to shape and change the workforce. We want it to look different. So we need to start thinking about how do we attract different types of people into the industry, and actually what attracts them into this industry.
I think that's one point. I think that very much echoes the point you made, Sarah.
It does, and if I could just, and sorry, because I know I was just speaking, I apologise,
no, go on.
But if I could add to that though, one thing that I think is really important is when we do attract people into our organisation, please don't judge them on being the same as yourself. Because I spent 20 years just pretending I was a man, right? I'll be sorry and to put it out there, but that's how you got on because you had to mirror those behaviours and that's how you were judged on how you behaved. And as a woman, you do behave differently as a man. People from different backgrounds behave differently. People of different, we all behave differently. And it's a real failing in an organisation if you try to create everybody in your own image.
Absolutely.
Because then you can attract as many people as you want, but A, you're not going to keep them, and you're not going to end up with a diverse organisation. And so if it's one thing, I'm now talking and behaving more like a woman, and actually I'm talking about it, And I think that is a key thing, and it's a challenge I would give everybody in the room because I don't see it happening systematically.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. That's really powerful. Terry, I don't know if there's something you would like to add.
I think building on Sarah's point, and actually probably ties into the question around line management, and specifically how we equip our line managers. So I guess firstly, I think as an industry we're doing a fantastic job on EDI and we've got some really, really good momentum on a whole bunch of fronts. The challenge on it, I think, is that we tend to be addressing some of the really important areas but which are visible. So gender, ethnicity, and sort of really important areas that are moving. But I think there's an opportunity now to just widen our perspectives a bit and look at neurodivergent talent as an example. Yeah. And so within our organisations, I think we do a particularly, let's use positive language, I think there's opportunity to do much more in how we attract neurodivergent talent within our industry, and specifically around how line managers are selecting talent. So people who are diverse or who think differently because of neurological differences won't interview in the same way, and through the selection processes we have systems and processes which are so focused on neurotypical candidates. And so when we move into an interview process or selection process, quite often neurodivergent talent don't quite meet the hiring criteria, which is a shame because they represent such a huge untapped talent pool, with about 1 in 5 of us now being estimated to be neurodivergent. And so when you start to look to what that plays into in an organisational context, we've got some pretty good experience in Global E&C. We've been through a process over the last couple of years. We've recruited several neurodivergent people into our organisation. They're fantastic team members, really driving different thinking, really excel and flourish in structured, rule-based environments, which is like perfect for engineers and software programmers, which incidentally are two of the biggest roles that we need to drive the energy transition. I won't go into all that detail today, but I'm more than happy if anybody wants to grab me off to the side or drop me a note to share our learnings and experience there. But
I genuinely would encourage you to follow up with Terry on that.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important area. And if I, actually, so one small piece for me, actually, I'm also a student at Aberdeen University, and this weekend I spent some time with some of the other students, and actually they make that point about the way they're trying to get jobs. And the way some of the straitjackets we put around our interview processes is turning loads of them away is a really interesting. Michael, I think.
Yeah. I'm completely aligned with all these comments, but let me give you one example in terms of promoting the diversity. Did you know that, or do you know that one of the important barriers for an employee going on an expatriation is the interruption of the spouse's career? I was wondering why we don't have in the oil and gas sector in the UK an intercompany agreement which supports exactly this idea to promote this initiative, to say, okay, maybe if you, from a company perspective, if you sign this agreement, you can agree to some principles to say, okay, if your spouse go on an expatriation, you have the right to apply for an unpaid leave. You have the right to come back to this company. It's an easy. It's a I don't know, one paper or two paper agreement. Nothing more needed. I'm just telling you, from time to time we discuss from really a wider picture, but we are missing the baselines. And for me, this is exactly the baseline to I don't know, to promote all these initiatives. I can the example. It's not an idea from myself. Don't get me wrong, but it's the Syndics agreement, which is in place in France, where a lot of French companies signed these intercompany agreement, and it works. And it's a simple approach. And maybe we can find some companies here in the oil and gas sector to, I don't know, to push these topic. So it's just a simple idea, but I think we need to discuss maybe from a broader perspective. I'm really convinced about the fact that each of us, each company, doing great things in terms of talent management. With all the different measures. So no doubts on this. But I think we can do more from an global perspective.
I think that's good, and I think one of the themes of today is we've got to do things differently. The Minister took a little bit of time, so if I could beg the audience's forgiveness, a couple more minutes. I thought, thank you for that. I did want to throw the opportunity, actually. Is there one question from the audience that people would like to ask any on our distinguished panel? Fraser, if you wouldn't mind just grabbing a mic. Come on, we need one question from the audience. Right, Judith. Is there a question from the audience? Anybody? Right, come on. Oh, there we go.
Hi, I'm really interested in how each of the organisations that are represented measure their diversity of talent within an organisation. GDPR legislation is very strict on what information you can request and what you can hold from employees. So just intrigued on how you measure your diverse workforce.
I wonder if maybe Sarah, would you mind taking that one?
Do you mean in terms of, sorry, in terms of like how we store it? Because if that's the question, I actually have no idea, sorry. But I know there's quite a number of my people and culture team in here today. But we can answer that after. But if it comes to it, what I do is, do we look at it? If that's the question, then absolutely. And I think it's something that we measure, as I said, in terms of our graduates, in terms of managing career opportunities. And one of the things we do is that when we have sort of promotion opportunities, what we do is I think promotions have to be actively managed. So we ensure that it isn't just who's applied, but who else do we think should be looking for these opportunities, or people we think should be moved up. Because quite often people are maybe less confident to put themselves forward. So from us, it's very much an active, an active management of our diversity in our organisation.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. Come over. Oh, yes. We'll have one more. That sounds good.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim Fahmi. The question is for retention. Why we don't have a special initiative to make like some percent of part-time jobs for the long-term service employees after like 15 years or something? This will help a lot in different dimensions. One of them is giving more opportunities to people to balancing life and work, and also will maybe double or triple the numbers of people at certain age to be still linking in the industry. I understand in UK government, when I serve in different societies, they have the same concept. Okay, especially for ex-military people who are joining some societies or some organizations, they can provide part-time work to give them the opportunity to spend some time with families and as you said, 20 years or 30 years or many travels here and there, is you need some compensations.
I think it's good. I think maybe we can talk to some of the flexible working we do offer. I don't know if Terry, you would pick that one up.
Yeah, I think that one's not generationally or family biased either. You know, we're seeing, and clearly the conventional way to look at it is quite often that you have people who have families and then they opt to maybe just reduce their hours a little bit so they get a better balance. But actually we're seeing it more now as well in people entering in the workforce. So you know, we mentioned different generational expectations. There's an expectation now that people can have more of an input on not just the work that they're doing, but how often they work and where they work from. And the need to attract talent means that we need to be much more adaptable in how we think about how we attract those skills. We're seeing that actually the biggest accelerator of that was clearly the pandemic. And had it not been for the way that we needed to move, I don't think we would have got there in a decade, never mind in a few years. But the whole outlook now is much less about where, when, what are your hours you work, and much more about, well, what are the outputs that you deliver and how do you contribute to the business. And if you take an output view in a team performance, then actually the rest of it's sort of academic. It's, are you performing, are you delivering, are you contributing to the team? And if you're doing all those things, you know, we'll be as flexible as we can be with how people engage with our organisation.
I think a great response and a great question. I do apologise, we're on slightly over, so last question for the panel. Please keep it really short. Today is about, actually, I think, is about making a difference, doing things differently. If you had one action or one takeaway from today's session, what would it be? If we could keep it brief, Christina.
Invest in X Academy and you're investing in talent.
I think we might have expected, yes, absolutely. And Michael?
Okay, following this approach, I would say join Total Energies. Yeah, so may I have to ask Shona, our recruiting manager here in the audience, where we advertise all our job positions? No, I think it's we need to build up the trust and confidence in all what we are doing, what we are offering, and to share these ideas with the younger generations and to communicate. It's all about communication.
Perfect. Terry?
I think if there's one takeaway, I think it would be, every company in this room, every company at this conference, to a greater or lesser extent, the success of their strategies is going to be determined by the talent that they attract. And so how we look at and attract talent is just so significant now. And to a certain extent, talent now leads strategy because it is fundamental on all the things that we're working on. And so one takeaway from this conference, from these conversations, would be, we fall into the trap, or we have done historically, where when we look at recruitment and talent attraction or retention or development, and we sort of say that's an HR job. Somebody else will sort that out and as a recruitment team for that. But given how pivotal talent now is to all of our strategies, every leadership team in this conference needs to think in a serious way about talent and then take talent up to the same level as finance. Right? We think about finance, we talk about financial performance and ROIs and capital deployment and the cost of capital, especially right now, and all these different things that are around how our investors generate value and what the markets might think of us. But if we spoke about talent at the same level as we speak about finance, then we'll make an industry-wide shift around how we attract 1 million engineers in specialist trades, right? But if we keep saying, well, actually, that's an HR job and it's not an industry leadership job, then it's not going to get it done. So the one takeaway is think about it, elevate it, speak to it at the same level as finance.
That's great. That's great. And Sarah?
I have two asks. One is continue all the great work we do getting out to schools and talking to people about what fantastic the careers they can have in the energy industry. And the second is for us to think differently, whether it's part-time working, be aware of unconscious bias when we look at how we work, look in different pools of people across the UK, and we will be able to attract what we need.
I think that's great. I think let's think differently and let's do things differently is a great way to end the session. So thank you very much indeed to our panel. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much indeed. Please don't forget anything, and I apologise for being slightly late.